नमस्कार, आदाब, सत श्री अकाल दोस्तों। स्वागत है आपका एक बार फिर से हमारे YouTube चैनल ब्रास फ्यूजन्स पर, जहां आज हम आपके लिए लेकर आए हैं एक नया लेसन।
Give me another. Just think it a little more. Give me another answer.
Okay.
Anybody can give me an answer. Anybody.
Because there are limitations.
Yeah, 1 minute. Let Trilok go first, then you, Ankur. Yeah, Trilok.
The part 11 of the Constitution and the chapter 1, there is a heading, distribution of legislative powers. So,
Okay.
so it defines that the power which are mentioned here are the power of the legislative, not the executive. So that may be the difference.
Okay. I mean, yes, but you know the legislative and executive power is coterminous. So how you're going to get past Article 73 is not at all clear to me in this argument. You can come back again. Yeah. Yes. Trilok.
Because if we give the power to the legislative, then the power of removal of disqualifying any member or any minister will be with the legislative.
No. You can't go against expressly given power under 103, where the power to disqualify and issue the final order is with the president on the advice of the election commission, right? 103. That you could not have gone away. No, I don't think that can be a reason. Ankur, yes, quickly tell us what is your argument. Why the ASG wanted to locate it there instead of in 102?
Under Article 102, there are some limitations that the line between the if you are going for 248, then you can distinguish between the sitting member and a non-sitting member.
Very good answer. That is true, because there is a limitation. If you locate the power in 1021E, look at what 1021E. If he is so disqualified by or under any law made by Parliament, okay? And this disqualification then must be a single disqualification, whether you're a sitting member or an ordinary citizen outside awaiting election and trying to get into Parliament. Okay? No distinction is possible because the power is expressly given in this form. But if you were to locate it in the residuary power, there is no entry in list 1 and list 3, so you're reading it in 246 read with 248. Because it is a silent grant of power under entry 97 list 1 read with 248. So entry is not the source of power, Akanksha, which is why I didn't go into entry 97. The entries are not sources of power. They're only areas or fields of legislation. The actual power is in the substantive article, either 246 or in 248. Okay? So if it is in 248, then because that power has no limitation, you are free to make a law which is able to distinguish between sitting members and yet to be sworn in members, people outside, which is actually what Section 8.4 has done. It has given you two standards of disqualification. So in order to defend it, he wanted to locate the power in 246 read with 248. Which brings me to another constitutional learning point. Whenever you read somebody has developed the argument, right, go a little behind the lines. In the conference that they would have held, why would they have chosen to locate it there? Obviously, isme kuch cheez hai. And then you will get to understand what it is. Because the reading of the judgment can be done at so many levels. One, I can read it like a story and I'll quickly tell you this is what the court. But why did they take that argument? What advantage did they hope to achieve? And what was it eventually that the court rejected? So I come back to you, Akshay Seal, once again. When the court struck down the law in Lily Thomas, what was the reason they gave based on Article 102? And my second question related to that is, was the striking down on grounds that it was ultra-virus the power under Article 102, or was it on the ground that it violated equality under Article 14? So was the judgment based on 14? Was the judgment based on ultra vires, the powers in 102? Akshay?
I think it was based on article. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. It's based on 14?
So basically, I think, ma'am, I think it was based on because.
14. Okay, who agrees with him? Who
Yes, ma'am.
disagrees with him?
I think it was declared ultra virus.
1 minute. Who all want to say it is ultra virus? I want other people to also respond. Rupali, just wait. Who else? Who disagrees with Akshay's seal? Was 14 the ground or 14 not the ground? Rupali, tell us why you disagree with Akshay's seal.
Ma'am, in para 37, the court says the only question that remains to be decided is whether a declaration in this judgment that section 4 is ultra vires the constitution. Ma'am, I cannot locate the exact line where they say that, yes, in the previous paragraph only, that it says, in other words, we can declare section 4 of section 8 of the Act as ultra vires without going into the question whether this subsection is violative of Article 14 of the Constitution.
That's right. Now, therefore, they never relied on Section 14 at all. Because had they gone under Section 14, you would have had to establish that these are two categories which are reasonable categories. Those already in Parliament, those outside Parliament. And by any logic, this seems to be a valid classification. The court would have had great difficulty in striking it down had the argument gone on Article 14. Because if there had been plenary power, untrammeled or unlimited power to make a legislation with regard to disqualification, which legislature would have had the power been located in 246 bed with 248, then it would have been within the power of Parliament to make a classification, ek rule jo andar hai aur ek rule jo bahar hai, and then to challenge it on 14 as violation of equality would have become an uphill task, because classifying it like this seems reasonable, seems what you will study next semester, an intelligible differentia, a logical categorization. Okay. Therefore, they did not go under 14 at all, because then their task would have become very difficult. Instead, they said that the power to make a law with regard to disqualification is not there, it's located in 102. And 102, now look at the language of 1021E. It's a very elegant judgment of Justice Patnaik. Because whenever I read it, I always find that a very good judicial craftsman who sidestepped one tricky question and chose, because it says, look at 102, by any law made by Parliament, that law made by Parliament must be a law which deals generally with disqualification. But the law, in fact, was not a single general law dealing with disqualification, but sought to have differential standards for those inside and outside. And that differentiation, the court said, without going to the question of 14 or without going to the question of equality and inequality, said that the power given to you is to make one law with regard to disqualification, but what you have done is really have two sets of standards, and this is ultra vires the power. And which is why then the court can say, as you have pointed out, Rupali, let me look at my case also. Which paragraph? Look at 33. Look at paragraph 33. Okay? If you have your case material open, I'm drawing your attention to two paragraphs. One, paragraph 26. And if you come to the last 3-4 lines of the paragraph, the court says, We do not therefore accept the contention of Mr. Luthra that the power to enact subsection 4 of section 8 of the Act is vested in Parliament under 246(1) read with entry 97 of list 1 of the 7th schedule and article 248 of the Constitution, if not in article 1021E and 191(1)E. That's Parliament and State Legislature. Okay. And then come to, so that is, it's not there, but it is here. Now look at 33. The opening lines of 33. Looking at the affirmative terms of 1021E and 191(1)E of the Constitution, we hold that Parliament has been vested with the powers to make law, laying down the same disqualification for persons to be chosen as member of Parliament and State Legislature, and for a sitting member of a House of Parliament or House of State Legislature. We also hold that the provisions of 1013A and 193A expressly prohibit Parliament to defer the date from which the disqualification will come into effect. That is a prohibition against deferment of the date. They are reading that in 103A. 103A. Now look at 103A. It should be 1031A, huh? 03. Sorry, 1013A. I'm looking properly. 1013A becomes subject to any of the disqualifications. Okay, they are saying because the moment you become subject to disqualification, the seat will become vacant. But what Section 8(4) does is, in the case of a sitting MP or MLA, it defers the disqualification later. So the second limb of the argument is, the moment the disqualification comes into effect, the seat is deemed to have fallen vacant. There is no power to defer the disqualification locatable in 101. So the power is located in 102. The coming into force of the vacation of the seat, the vacant seat, is with immediate effect under 101. So the second ground for holding the law to be unconstitutional, first, under 102, it should have been a single law, single standard. Number two, under 101, the seat that got vacated must get vacated immediately when the disqualification kicks in, not at the end of the term. And therefore, I come back to 33 again, para 33. We also hold that the provisions of Article 1013A and 193A of the Constitution expressly prohibiting Parliament to defer the date from which the disqualification will come into effect in the case of a sitting member of Parliament or State Legislature. Parliament, therefore, has exceeded its powers conferred by the Constitution in enacting subsection 4 of section 8. So in answer to my question, did they hold it ultra-virus? The answer is yes. On what grounds? One, by having a differential law which is violative and ultra-virus 102, and by having a law which defers the disqualification. Defers meaning postpones the disqualification for sitting people, which is ultra-virus 101. So it's ultra-virus 101 and 102, which is why some of you, in response to my first question, where is the power of legislation located? Some of you mistakenly said 101. But you can now see why that's not the correct answer. The power to legislate is 102, but the law is ultra-virus 101 and 102. Now, if it is ultra-virus 101, that is postponement, look at how the Supreme Court has now molded the relief. And to that I turn to paragraph 38. If a thing is ultra-virus, then a court judgment takes effect retrospectively from the date that that legislative provision was enacted by Parliament. Let me repeat once again. As a general rule, when the court strikes down a provision of law as ultra-virus, it comes into effect retrospectively from the initial date that the law came on the statute book normally. Yet, beginning with IC Golaknath versus State of Punjab, the court said balancing the need for equity, because we don't want to reopen past cases on the basis of a law which is now being held to be invalid or ultra vires. We will say that our decision will take effect prospectively. If a judgment is silent on when it takes into effect, you can safely say it will take effect from previous date. Okay. So when it is struck down, normally it will be always, there will be a sentence saying forthcoming. So if you were to open, for example, Navtej Jogar's case on section 377, it was read down, consensual, private acts, upheld. And whether it was prospective or not, you must go back to that judgment and look at it carefully. Likewise, there have been very few provisions are ever struck down as being ultra vires. Lily Thomas is one of them. But because many people already would have enjoyed the postponement or deferment of their disqualification, and now we cannot undo that and say that जो भी वोट उन्होंने पार्लियामेंट में दिया वो सब यूजलेस है, अब उसको निकाल कर फिर से गिनती कीजिए, वो सब it's all too much to do. And therefore in 38, see how they mold their relief. And the power to mold this relief, from where does the court get this? It gets it from Article 142 of the Constitution, where the court has power to do complete justice in a case. It is from 142 really that paragraph 38 has been done, and what I'm calling the molding of the relief. Now look at what exactly, Akshay Seal, I come back to you. What exactly, how did the Supreme Court mold the relief in this particular case? Akshay, are you there? Akshay Seal, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. No, don't bother with the camera if it's taking time. Tell us how they molded the relief.
As in, ma'am, as given in para 38.
Yeah. What did they say?
Ma'am, they said that under subsections 1, 2, and 3, the disqualification starts as soon as they are convicted.
Yes.
But as for the other under subsection 4, the one who are done under subsection, who are the sitting members of the parliament, they will get a chance to appeal, and then if as we know that it will take some time, so they will continue to remain members even though they should have been disqualified.
And for people who get elected after this, and then if they get convicted, will their disqualification be with immediate effect, or उनको भी chance मिलेगा अगले बार?
No, I don't think so.
Don't think, no think. What did the court say? Anybody else?
Ma'am, it will take effect immediately if they'll stand disqualified.
Because this judgment came out at this point in time, what the court says is, if anybody has already been convicted and they are continuing to be members of parliament merely because of section 8(4), to just disqualify them, and because their appeal is pending, we will not disqualify them, because our judgment has come after they have been convicted, after they have filed the appeal, and they are thinking we will work out the rest of our term. For them alone, we will wait for the appeal to come. But after the date of the judgment, if a sitting MP should get convicted, his disqualification will be immediate. Okay? So they have made this differentiation, and this differentiation is based on principles of equity and justice, because the person who had been convicted before, the sitting MP who had been convicted before, who had filed an appeal, was thinking, I'm proceeding as per section 8(4). Today the court is holding 8(4) to be ultra vires and unconstitutional. These people had already taken a benefit. Normally this judgment would relate back, they should be disqualified. But because they had already taken advantage of 8(4), the court says for them alone let it continue. But I want to read out again. However, sitting members of parliament who have already been convicted for any offence and who have filed appeals or revisions which are pending are accordingly saved from the disqualification by virtue of Article 8.4. They should not, in our considered opinion, be affected by the declaration now made by us in this judgment. Okay? This is because the knowledge that sitting members of parliament or MPs will no longer be protected by Section 8.4 will be acquired by all concerned. Because at the time when their disqualification should have come, they thought they have this little window of appeal and continuing for the rest of the term. Then look 3 lines further down. It would be against the principles of natural justice to permit the subjects to be punished or penalized by laws of which they had no knowledge, because at that time this judgment had not come out. Okay. However, now look further down, 2 more lines further. However, if any sitting member of parliament is convicted of any of the offences mentioned in 1, 2 and 3 of Section 8, and what is this classification of 1, 2 and 3? 1 and 2 are lists of offences, and number 3 is the generic clause which says conviction for more than 2 years. Okay, but 1 and 2 are specific offences. And in fact, if you remember and you look at Justice Bharucha's judgment in B.R. Kapoor, he recommends that Prevention of Corruption Act be included in those 1 and 2. I asked you, Akshay, classify. If you are convicted under clause 1 or clause 2, the period of sentence is irrelevant. The very important point. If I am convicted under sections 1 and section 2, under any of the laws mentioned in section 1 and section 2, okay, and what are these sections under section 8? 153, offences of enmity between people. 498A, cruelty by husband. Customs Act, Protection of Civil Rights Act, Untouchability Offences Act, Narcotics. If you are under 1 and 2 under the enumerated laws, please remember period of sentence is irrelevant. But under 3, any law but period of sentence. That's a categorization. Which is why in B.R. Kapoor, one of the judges recommended that Prevention of Corruption Act be brought under 1 and 2. Because then if it's an enumerated law, period of sentence becomes irrelevant. Okay? Now, come back here again. However, if any sitting member of parliament or state legislature is, I'm going to take 1 minute and stop, or state legislature is convicted for any offence, then after the pronouncement of this judgment, his membership of parliament, as the case may be, will not be saved by subsection 4, which we have by this declaration, judgment declared as ultra-virus. So the molding of the relief is those who were convicted, who filed an appeal and were expecting the locus penitentiae of 8.4, they will continue. But after the date of the judgment, prospectively, anybody who gets disqualified will immediately stand disqualified and the seat will become vacant. That's what I meant by molding of the relief, because there is a little backward looking element in this. Backward meaning relating back in time after the judgment. Okay. So therefore, please look at this carefully, and the question of prospective, etc., of the molding of the relief. And now this was a judgment delivered in 2013. That Lok Sabha is over, that Legislative Assembly is over, so now there is no window left. We've got fresh Lok Sabha, we've got fresh MLAs, we've got every state has had fresh elections. We're now 7 years down the line, so it's more than 5 years, and therefore Lily Thomas is good law. You can find out for yourself whether any attempt has been made to recast 8.4. Whether Law Commission has submitted a report, that's for you to find out and read. So I would expect you all to read. Tomorrow, I will be moving on to the Lok Prahari judgment, which is the second judgment after Lily Thomas on application of it. So it's there in our contents. It's not in the case material, it's in the table of contents. I expect everybody to read it. If anybody would like to volunteer for Lok Prahari to make the presentation for class, Who would like to volunteer for Lok Prahari, please? Anjali Tayan.
Yes, ma'am.
दोस्तों, अगर आपको आज का लेसन पसंद आया हो तो वीडियो को लाइक करें। इसी के साथ अगर आपने अभी तक हमारा चैनल सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया है तो सब्सक्राइब के बटन पर क्लिक करिए और बेल आइकन दबाना ना भूलें, ताकि आपको एजुकेशन से रिलेटेड नए नए अपडेट्स मिलते रहें। और अधिक जानकारी पाने के लिए आप हमारे फेसबुक और इंस्टाग्राम पेज से भी जुड़ सकते हैं, जिसका लिंक डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में दिया गया है। धन्यवाद।